we're going to ask the audience a question about decision making. Everyone makes decisions different ways. Some people are trust your gut, just go and do, and other people are much more analytical and methodical. So we're going to ask you all, how do you make decisions? So far, early returns is no one trusts their guts. We've got the majority of people are a little bit of both. It just kind of depends on the situation. And then a couple of those more analytical and methodical. That is perfect. There's no right answer. I am a trust your gut, and even if my gut is really wrong, I will just stick with my gut, which is probably not the best. So let's ask you all, how do you make decisions?
I'd say I'm a little bit of both, and I think that comes from the nature of being an athlete, right? You think through everything. You're a planner. You're so strategic all of the time about everything that you do. And sometimes it's really difficult to just solely rely on gut reaction. You may be feeling your gut feeling, but in your head, you're starting to process, why am I feeling this way, right? So that's where the strategic part comes in. For me, I might have my gut feeling, but sometimes I'm too quick to react that I'm like, okay, hold on, let me just take a second, let's think through this, let's write it out, reevaluate, and then most of the time, I can trust that my gut was right initially, but I can feel really good about the decision that I made, knowing that I actually walked through the process from an analytical perspective.
Yeah, great.
So I would say I'm definitely an analytical decision maker. I definitely take the time to think before I act. I base my decisions around my goals. I tie them close to my goals and what I enjoy most and what I have the most. I carve out time, so what I have the most time for. And oftentimes I do also make a pros and cons list to see what is going to benefit me best. And once again, back to the timing of it all too, is it always comes down, how much time do I have to do this? And is it realistic to do it now? Or does this need to be put off for another time? I also like to rely on others, so parents, coaches, professors. I always want to lean on others to give me advice on what they think as well. I don't like to always make my own decisions. I always have what I believe, but then I also like to hear from others too to see what they think on it as well. It is also based, like I said, on it all comes back to the time for me. Is I always try to carve that out and try to see what is going to make most sense for me in my future and what's going to benefit me most. So.
All right, this is a great question. I would say as an administrator, I'm usually going to look for some type of an advisory committee on something, especially on things that I know are going to be highly controversial. So I work at a HBCU, and when I tell you tailgate at homecoming is important, I'm going to tell you what, it's extremely important. So the last 2 years, it's so important at the point that once homecoming's over, we have homecoming on a Saturday, and then on Monday, I'm already getting people asking me, can I buy my tailgate spot for next year? It's that important. So 3 years ago, we started another process where we sell our tailgate spots the first weekend of July, and that first year, we sold out in 4 hours. And so then they were like, we want to pre-register in the spring. So we tried that last year. So I'm actually trying to keep the anxiety down because I know next week I'm going to have to really start addressing when we're going to open up tailgate and all that. But some of those things are controversial. I put a committee together, some of my best tailgaters, and they're able to kind of problem solve. No, if you make that decision, I feel this way about it. So I'm able to use their feedback to really develop a plan that's going to be best for everybody. Not everybody's going to be happy, but I already know some of the things that I'm going to have to jump over when a decision is made. So when I make my final decision, okay, I'm comfortable with it. There are going to be a few outliers, but this is what's best for everybody. And then I think personally, I'm very analytical on the decisions. And then if I'm still having problems, again, I go back to if I'm struggling with my gut and what my head's telling me to do, I pray about it.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Maddie, I've got a question for you. As a student athlete, we talk about this a lot. How do you focus on what really needs to get done?
Yeah. So I really prioritize and plan and schedule everything out. So I do tests, like I said, what makes most sense in the moment, and I try to focus on it one at a time. So looking at everything once again is super, super overwhelming, and knowing how much I have to do all at once can really drag me down. So I do try to take it slow and take it one by one. And with basketball in the picture too, like that just adds on to it. So I have to always focus on all those other things, friends, family, school. So I set goals by writing down and telling myself when I need to get something done, and I stick to that. So when I'm doing certain things, I really focus hard on giving my best effort, and I'm really hard on myself when I don't complete tasks to the best of my ability. So I do really think that it is worth it to always do my best, and that's why it's so important for me to create, once again, going back to my game plan for every week. So once I do really stay organized, and that's what really helps me. And so this is something that I would say that I am great at. And I think organization is also another one of my best traits, and I enjoy organizing, and I do my best to follow through with what I say and what I plan out. So
That is perfect, and such. I'm going to ask you to pass the mic to Janita, because that goes beautifully into, as an AD, you're managing a lot. Can you share some tips and tricks on how you stay organized?
Well, this is, I'm sure my assistant AD is laughing somewhere on this part. But so I actually served on the Leadership and Governance Academy like 3 days ago. And I had, on part of my presentation, I had one of my days in January, I actually took the time, I did like a voice memo real quick throughout the day, and then kind of cleaned everything up, because I knew I was going to be participating in that academy. So I actually had 40 items from 8:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock that night, when I had 2 doubleheader games with OCU, ironically, in basketball. But it's amazing. I can have the best planned day, and sometimes there are just so many interruptions that you have to take. And so I do struggle with that a little bit. And it's ironically not so much when I was a coach. I was very like, hey, it's not on the list, it's not happening. I was very much like that, but I've kind of had to change, or I would go absolutely nuts. I do utilize my calendar on my phone a lot. And then my assistant AD, we usually share an updated list for the week. She shoots me that on Sunday, add to this, and it does bring you great joy to be able to hit that little check mark and knock that one off. One of the things I was going to say too, I think this is still a carryover from when I coached, but man, just having a journal and to put some other things in there, maybe not so much about, so if I have a journal, let's say I'm doing homecoming, I'm going to have some other things in there that I need to read and remember throughout the time. So for some reason, since I was a small child, I was one of those people that absolutely loved school. And I think that journal, there is nothing like receiving a brand new journal. Like, I can't tell you that. Do you understand? Okay. So there is all of those blank pages is just open to the possibilities is just absolutely overwhelming. So I try to look at that, and as you fill it up, and let's say, hey, don't have colored pens to put in there either too. So that takes it to another level. So I think you try to find those small joys in having to organize. And then right now, I think it's important as an administrator that you hire people around you that are strong in areas where you're weak. And that helps you keep everything afloat.
Yeah. Oh, that is a perfect answer. I'll have you pass to Bree, because I love that you mentioned that, because I really see delegation as a gift. Delegation is a gift, obviously, for us, because it helps free up our calendar. But more importantly, delegation is a gift because we're able to go to people and say, where are your areas that you want to grow? How do you want to get better? And, what is on my list that would be an opportunity for you to grow and to experience new things? So I really see delegation as a gift. So, Bree, are you good at delegation? And how do you practice it?
I laugh because I'm not that old, as most would guess, or you can just go look up yourself. And I think the toughest thing that I had to learn in transitioning from being a student athlete to moving into real life was learning how to let go of control. And I think you learn to navigate that in the transition of life after sport, because everything up to that point, you feel like you've had to do every single thing to get that one thing that you wanted. Yeah. So you feel a sense of ownership to that. And in my role now, my job is to lead education efforts for our business, but if I'm not trusting the people that are a part of our team, then how in the world are we going to get the best job done, right? I'm not going to come up with all the best decisions. I'm not always going to do the best work because someone else might have that better idea. Someone else may be able to execute it more effectively, like we're talking about. So for me, delegation has to be all about trust, but it's all about empowerment too, right? There are people that empower me to make decisions and take action every day. And as someone who is moving into more of a leadership role and doing that for others, if I want to be a really good leader, I have to make sure that I empower others to make those decisions, to take action and do the work that I need them to do. But if I don't let go of that control a little bit, it's going to be really difficult. So it's a little bit of like you take pride in your work, but you take pride in the team that you have right next to you too.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm gonna throw you a little curveball.
No pun intended.
Nope. Maybe just a little, but I know you're gonna hit a home run.
There we go. Just keep going with it. That's good.
But it's what's so awesome. It's everyone we've had on all the panels. It's so great. And I mean, you are what this panel is about, going from the student athlete, into the corporate world. And so what's some advice that you would have given yourself that would be helpful?
Oh, man, I could go a lot of different directions. Honestly, the biggest thing is don't put yourself in a box, right? Throughout my journey of being a student athlete, I thought I had to be a coach because all I knew was softball. So it was like, okay, as soon as my playing career is over, and I thought I was going to play forever, learned that wasn't going to happen really fast, and then was like, okay, I'm going to be a coach because softball is what I know, it's what I do, it's how I make an impact. And it took me having the right conversations with some really great mentors to be like, hey, Bree, you know what? Like, you're involved in these other things through SAC. You go out and do these things in the community. Like, do you recognize these strengths and skills that you have? And it took a little bit of that self-evaluation of like, okay, maybe I can have an impact in a different way. But that took some realization that I needed to step out of my box a little bit. It's so easy to think like, oh yeah, I have to do this because I can only do that. No, you can do a lot of different things. To be quite honest, I thought for sure I was on the route of going to be an SWA and doing all those things. Not to say that might not happen one day. I never thought I'd leave an athletic department. So there's been a lot of different points in my journey where I had to step out of my box, and I continue to step out of my box. And now I'm in the corporate world thinking about, what does this look like for me? But it all works together, right? So, and in the shortest words is just have fun, challenge yourself. It's, we get so accustomed to doing the same things all the time that you never know until you try. And worst case, the nice thing is you're probably going to make a whole lot of connections to go try a different thing if that one doesn't work out. And it's okay. To just know that it's okay to fail. And that's something that you learn throughout being an athlete as well.
Yeah. It's perfect, and take those opportunities. I mean, be bold. I think it's great. So, okay, final question for the whole panel. You guys can decide who wants to go first. When we think about this session on how we do more and be more efficient, we also, the whole series is about how we are as leaders. So much of what we do is building strong relationships. And we've talked a lot about leaning on other people during the session. So how do you intentionally work on building relationships with your peers and other leaders?
I know that we've all heard this phrase growing up, but I truly do believe that treating others the way that you want to be treated comes from the building of the relationship. I think it's so important for everyone on teams to be heard and have a voice, no matter how loud, how quiet, their leadership position, if they're in one, if they're not. I think it's so important for everyone to be heard no matter what. So another thing that I love to do is collaborate with others, and that's what helps me build those relationships, is hearing from them and hearing their voice and hearing what they have to say, just because it isn't always just about who's on the board. It's hearing from the others that are there as well and hearing their input that they have for you as well. So when people feel that their voice is heard and valued, I truly believe it's super important, and it strengthens the bond that you have between the team and just all across the playing field. So I believe that's super important.
Thank you. All right, well, going next, I want to talk a little bit about, you guys all know about servant leadership, right? All right, so I feel like servant leadership is also maybe one of the most underrated parts of our character building initiative. I believe that you can start building relationships through servant leadership. I've got a couple of things written down here. One of them is with internships. All right, just because you don't have an official one internship for class doesn't mean you can't create one. That you can go someone, I'm not sure about that business. Go and introduce yourself. Most likely that business is going to want you associated with what they're doing and offer to help. What business, especially at this time, I'm going to get some free help, and someone that's really committed to that. All right, and then after you finish that, that's also goes on your resume, right? All right, and so then servant leadership, do a variety of things. Go and help. Right now, when I left, I have a graduate assistant and I have another young lady that's a business major that usually work in my office. I sent them both to the president's office. She needed some help. She's out without an admin right now. And she's texting me almost every day, like, thank you. And I'm just like, don't get too comfortable with them because I want them back when I get there. But I want them to see another area on campus. I want them to learn what's going on in the president's office. And one of them was like, man, I can't believe how much paperwork comes through here. And so he was helping with filing and also returning emails and those type of things. But also, I know that his executive assistant, that they're going to be able to depend on her if they need a reference letter or something else, just because of their servant leadership this week. So yeah, I think that we need to, although we're doing servant leadership because that's what we're supposed to do, it feels amazing, but it also is such a stepping stone to building relationships. So we talked about the internship and helping out there, but also just, I can't tell you how important it is just to give back to others and start with that. Also having the elevator speech, has anyone ever talked to you about that already? And you can really practice it on these elevators. Huh? But just have that conversation starter ready. One of those things that you're comfortable with, maybe that you know that these one or two always work for me. And put yourself in uncomfortable positions where you have to make yourself talk. All right, so I would say kind of growing up, I think that if I were left alone to do what I want, I'd be in a corner reading a book somewhere. But I know that being introverted wouldn't help me meet my goals and my dreams. So in order to do that, you have to push yourself to speak more. You have to push yourself to be in uncomfortable positions to prepare yourself for your next step in your journey.
Love it.
The thing that I'd add is when I think about relationships, I reflect on what my journey has looked like up to this point, and I always fall back on the relationships that I've built, whether that was someone reaching out to me because they saw something in me and wanted to invest in me, or I was that young kid that was like, hey, I want to know how to do that, right? I want to know what your career is like. I want to learn how to do those things. And I truly believe, like, to get to where you want to go, you have to be surrounded by a lot of really great people that are forging down that path with you. It might look a little different for everyone that's in that circle, but because of those relationships, you can lean on one another for those ideas, the challenges, the accountability, and that comes from valuable relationships that you build. The saying that we have at Open Door says, build something great with people you care about. And we take that very, very serious in the work that we do, because it's, at the end of the day, we're going to go out and accomplish our business goals. But if we're not caring about the people around us, it's really hard to want to be in the trenches with one another, right? We're going to do our work, we're going to get it done. But it's taking those moments to say, hey, have you taken time for yourself this week? Or, hey, I know you've had a lot on your plate. What are you doing this weekend? And just go have fun and forget about all this stuff. Remember that Monday we'll be back at it. You can relax for 48 hours, right? So knowing that when you do that for others, people can do the same back for you. It just creates a really great environment that's going to allow you to be the best you can be. And those are always the people that you can lean on no matter what things life throws at you.
Yeah, perfect. Great. I love hearing you all talk about relationship building. It's so important to who we are as leaders. So thank you everyone so much for being here today. We're really excited for the final session, which is on resilience. So we've talked all season about all of our great plans and how we do things. And now the final session is what happens when it doesn't work out. And we all know that happens. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for being so open and sharing. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Yay! Nice job, ladies.